Okay, hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm glad you have the time and the commitment to the Dhamma to listen to these Dhamma talks. And I trust you'll be blessed in some way, that seeds will be planted that will bear fruit in the best of all possible ways in your life as a blessing to you and to others. Today we're on page 57. We've been talking about the characteristics of an arhat. I want to start this talk today by saying it is impossible, and I mean that in the strongest sense of the word. It is impossible for a secular mind, someone who is not an arhat, to imagine what it must be like to be an arhat. It is impossible to imagine what nibbana, what liberation looks like or feels like, what it would be like to be fully liberated. And any time we spend imagining what it must be like, we can be certain we are deluded. We are wasting our time. It is a classic expression of sankharas, of formations, of fantasizing, constructing, and fabricating something in the mind that has no reality whatsoever. So we can listen to these words trying to articulate what it might be like to be an arhat, but I caution you to imagine that you have an understanding of it once we stop talking about it. We only have the understanding of the vocabulary that is unique to us. We don't have an understanding of vocabulary that is universal. Even if we get out the dictionary and read the definition, someone else's understanding of that definition might be different. So our job is, in this case, especially talking about something we cannot understand. We just listen to it. We say, okay, that's good. I'm glad I heard that. And now I don't need to think about it anymore. I may not even be a Sotaban or a Sekadagami or an Anagami, and here I am fantasizing about being an Arhat. By the way, a Sotaban cannot imagine what it's like to be a Sekadagami. A Sekadagami cannot imagine what it's like to be Anagami. These are things beyond our imagination. They are realities that we don't experience in the world through the six sense doors. So any imagination of what it's like to be liberated is nothing more than imagination. Okay, page 57. Arhats are worthy teachers. The miracle of teaching, which the Buddha praised as the greatest of all miracles, also called a noble power. The ability to communicate the Dhamma in such a way that others can begin to grasp it sufficiently to begin to practice it is a noble power. There are people, and have been throughout history, who are very articulate, very well informed about Dhamma, and they can express Dhamma verbally very proficiently, very poetically, beautifully, but it lacks the power of the Arhat. And it will lack having the impact that the same words spoken by an Arhat will have. There's a saying in the scripture in New Testament where some men whose job it was to argue about the scriptures, which were the Jewish scriptures of the day, they were recognized as very intelligent, even wise people, because they could read and write, and so few people could, and they had mastered a certain understanding through this ability to use their brain to think and research the scriptures. And they were listening to Jesus give a Dhamma talk. And one turned to the other and said, "He speaks as one with authority." Translated, he's not just one of us arguing about theory, about philosophy, about a belief system. He sounds like somebody who, quote, knows what he's talking about. He knows from direct experience. He's a living example of what the rest of us have only thought about. So that's where we're headed with our practice. If we practice, we're headed to being one with authority. If our practice is just listening and reading and philosophizing and theorizing, practicing sankharas, fabricating, imagining, then we're never going to be one who speaks with authority. The important thing is to find a teacher who truly knows the Dhamma, faithfully teaches the Dhamma, and has attained the highest level of enlightenment, like the Arahants, disciples of the past. That's a quote from the great Mahabhuva. He's stressing to us that imagining we can walk this path without a teacher is delusional. A teacher is not someone that we found in a book or on YouTube or social media. A teacher is someone who knows us, who knows our phone number or our email address, someone we can talk to when we are confused or we're doubting, when we're suffering from in any way whatsoever. We must find a teacher who is at least a Satapani. That is the minimum level of proficiency. If you can find a teacher who is more than Satapani, then listen carefully and follow their instructions. I'm fortunate to know 2 fully liberated teachers in Thailand, and their teaching is always comes from a voice of authority. So far as seeking a teacher is concerned, you should look for the best teacher, one who has attained the highest state of purity, the state of Buddha or enlightenment, Buddho or enlightenment, also from Mahabhuva. Pure awareness, devoid of all contaminants, a superior awareness, a quality of knowing that bestows perfect happiness and it always remains constant in the Arhat. So this mind of the Arhat, the consciousness of the Arhat, is a pure awareness. He's not missing, he's not sleeping mentally. His sati is just on call, on duty, 24/7. He's devoid of these contaminants, which the worst of which is he or she, does not believe that they are a person. They don't have any misunderstandings, misperceptions, that are deluding them about the nature of reality, divine reality. They have this supreme awareness. That's back to sati. Sati, mastered, is supreme awareness. They have a quality of just knowing. They just know because they live in this field of knowing. They don't live in the secular world. They live in a field where knowing is all there is. That's all there is, just knowing. At the level of the Arhat, the Chitta, that's the mind, has absolutely no involvement with anything. So when something arises in consciousness, the Arhat is aware, they know something has arisen, and that's it. They don't say, oh, wow, that's so great, oh, let's do that again, or blah, 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 oh, I like that so much, let's have a replay, let's do that again next week. None of that. They just see that the law of nature is anicca. Everything arises and passes away. Everything, because it is impermanent, it's insubstantial. We can't depend on it. We don't know the future. Therefore, it's dukkha. We can't predict even 1 minute from now. The weathermen try to predict the next day's weather, and because it's something in this world with satellites and science, etc., they have some capacity to do that. We cannot predict even the next hour of our own life. We imagine that we can. We get up every day thinking we'll go to bed that night. But if we've ever watched the news, we find out that's not what happens to a great many people, and hopefully we can learn something from this constant change. Okay, number 5 qualities given up before reaching Arhat. So now we're back to the Anagami. These are things the Anagami has to surrender, let go of. Sloth and torpor, mental and physical laziness. Now the opposite of laziness is being restless. Someone who cannot sit still. Someone who is compulsively having to do something all the time. They have the radio on or they have the TV on, and they're just going from task to task to task. They cannot be quiet. They cannot sit still. So those two are opposites, sloth and torpor, and restlessness. The next one is worry, anxiety. Our culture, at least in America, is just convulsing with anxieties. I know people personally who won't answer the doorbell because they're terrified of what's on the other side of the door. So they worry about everything. Someone comes to visit them and they say, call me when you get home. They're worried the person will die in a car wreck going from their house back to their home. Those are possibly extreme examples. We need to not notice how other people are suffering. We need to notice how we worry. What do we worry about? What kinds of things? Worry means we're trying to control the things that will happen in this world, both to us and those we care about. And worry, of course, is a form of suffering because we cannot control. We cannot control what happens to us or what happens to others. And worrying, science, I just saw an article yesterday, science has documented that worry weakens the immune system. And it makes the immune system, when making the immune system weak, it means the body is able to invite or problems, all kinds of illnesses. So it's not just a mental phenomena, it affects the body as well. Doubt, we know, is one of the 5 problems that we suffer from. I've talked about it recently. It's usually self-doubt. I'm not good enough. I don't have the right karma. I can't be successful in this life. I don't have what it takes, etc. And the people who succeed at anything, whether it's a great athlete, which I think is quite an amazing accomplishment, great musicians, people of mastering mathematics, science, music, etc., they have overcome self-doubt sufficiently to be successful in their occupation or even in their marriage or in their relationships. They have a strong determination that carries them through those moments of self-doubt. And negligence. Negligence means we're not paying attention. We haven't mastered our sati. Negligence is problematic because all the moments that we're negligent are moments we're planting seeds for the future that we may not enjoy once they bear fruit. Okay. Liberation means freedom from all identification with personality and personal history. One of my teachers, Prajan Kanchit, no one celebrates his birthday. He has no sense of being a person who was born on a certain day with a mother and a father, etc., and that we should celebrate that personhood. It's because he's liberated from a sense of ever having been a person. He believed he was a person all the way up till the moment he became an arhat. Once he was an arhat, he awakened from the dream of being a person. In New Testament, people were already starting to worship Jesus as some kind of a Superman, a god, a great saint, and they saw him as a person. And he saw this is the wrong understanding of what's going on with Christ consciousness. And he said, not me, but the Father in me. So he was trying to get them to recognize what it's like to have a Christ consciousness and forget all about his personal past, who his mother was, who his father was, what genetic line, what his ancestry was. Did he qualify according to scriptures from coming from the right kind of family or the right tribe to be recognized as a saintly person, on and on and on. So, in the case of the arhat, those character traits, essentialities, and elements of personality that are not sustained by defilements, that's critical, survive their enlightenment. That means that an arhat still has a personality. They still have certain speech patterns. Prajan Kanchit used to play soccer. Apparently in high school he was quite good. It's still something that interests him. When he leaves the meditation center where there's no internet reception, he has a cell phone and he'll check the scores of his favorite soccer teams. This does not create any kind of karma that is a defilement, that can be described or defined as a defilement. So it doesn't make any karma. So a fully liberated person, I mentioned just earlier, they still have karma that must be exhausted before the body can fall away. But while they're living that time, they are not making any new karma. But they still have a personality. And this is important to recognize, that they don't just suddenly become an amorphous mass of nondescript being. No, they have senses of humor, and they laugh and make jokes and etc., unique to their personality. I mentioned Ajahn Jayasaro. He wrote a really great book about Ajahn Chah called Stillness Flowing. I think you can find it online if you'd like to know more about Ajahn Chah. For although their Dhamma virtue is at the highest level, they will not be able to let go of their latent habitual tendencies. This is in reference to the Arhat. Fully liberated, but they still want to check the soccer scores. They still prefer certain kinds of foods. They may have an interest in things that they've always had. The difference is they're not attached to them. They're not craving for them in the way they used to before their minds were liberated. Arhat, one whose taints are destroyed, one who has lived the spiritual life, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, and reached his goal, utterly destroyed the fetters of existence, one completely liberated through final knowledge. Laid down the burden. What's the burden? What's the burden we're carrying that is so troublesome, so heavy? It's the burden of being a person and everything that constitutes being a person. What does it mean to be a person? Well, we have our likes and our dislikes. We're lazy mentally or physically, or we're hyperactive. We have worries, anxieties, and doubts. In other words, there are various forms that suffering takes, including craving to have only pleasant experiences. Lay down the burden. Ajahn Chah said, we don't know how heavy the rock is until we put it down. This is why we're listening to Dhamma talks. This is why we're practicing diligently and faithfully every day in our meditation and in our mindfulness. This will result in putting down the rock. And it's usually not done all at once, but little by little, just as they say a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Every step brings us closer to the goal. And at some point, we take the last step. We don't think about it. We don't fantasize about it. We don't let our minds fabricate about it. We just keep walking. Okay, thank you. Thank you for listening. I'm so grateful that you've tuned in. May you be blessed by this effort you're making to practice Dhamma.